I'm Colin.
And I'm Ryan. Tonight on Duel of the Fans, we're talking
Attack of the Clones. Ryan, do you like Attack of the Clones?
You want the long answer or the short answer?
Well, this podcast is going to go on for a little bit, so let's dive into that long answer.
I guess that's pretty silly of me. I think we're going to do the long answer.
So, Attack of the Clones is one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
It's definitely up there in the grand scheme of Star Wars timeline. I think it's full of action. It's got a great love story.
Okay.
There's some politics. There's a little bit of comedy. It's pretty much got everything you could possibly want in a movie. Not everything's done up to 100% tier because you can't have 100% in every category in one movie. But I think it was truly amazing. Okay. I wasn't bored from start to finish. I know a lot of people have hate for Attack of the Clones. I think mainly that's like, you know, when someone hates something and then it goes viral and then everybody just kind of hates something?
And they just kind of get on board
with it. It's like a
okay.
bandwagon thing. I think a lot of it just stems with people because they hate Hayden Christensen, right? I don't think it really has too much to do with Attack of the Clones. So I think that's where like the big grand scheme of hate comes from. Do you fall into that category or?
I wouldn't say I hate this movie because it's Star Wars. I mean, we've said this in the past. There's always some element, there's something within a story, there's something within the universe that we can enjoy. I would say this is probably my least enjoyed and least watched Star Wars movie. So I had seen this for my birthday when I was young, and I had it in the background playing in the past. When we watched it again, that was probably the second true viewing of the movie for me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I think unlike episode 1, where I really did walk away with like a new appreciation for that movie, I have to be honest. Like I really enjoyed that viewing. This left me a little conflicted.
Okay.
Because everything you made, great points. And even during the movie, you brought up some really, really good points and great ways for me to look at things. But I think this one just doesn't do it for me. It just kind of falls flat overall. Yeah, there's some great characters. I don't think they're great portrayals of everyone. I think this one feels slower. And I thought episode 1 in hindsight had like been a slow movie. But episode 1, like watching it again, was like, no, there's a lot going on.
So you say this one feels slower in comparison to what? Episode 1? Or in comparison to, like, say, episode 4?
Maybe, I mean, you know, the prequels are their own energy. I think this was kind of a step back, maybe. The first one was beautiful and entertaining, and there was so much depth to it. When this one starts, it feels like there's like 2 or 3 movies or like shows or games like in between Phantom Menace to now that we missed, that we probably should have seen. And I get Star Wars always is like that. Like we always kind of get dropped into stuff, but it feels like we missed a lot of fairly important stuff. Like Anakin is...
Give me some points.
Anakin is way grown up now.
Yes.
You know,
almost 10 years have gone by.
We hear about it all the time about like Anakin and Obi-Wan's adventures, but we really don't get to see them.
No. Definitely.
We see one mission in the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, you know, and like and they crash a ship, and that's kind of cool. But in this one, like Obi-Wan's playing Detective Kenobi for most of the movie, and Anakin's playing lover boy. So it's like they're not even...
Their only mission is right at the beginning to protect Padme.
And, you know, we talked about it when we were watching that. It should have been neat. Like, you know, them jumping from speeders and all. It just... There was something about it. I don't know if it was the setting, the background,
on Coruscant?
Yeah, that
I thought it was super neat.
We
get a speeder chase. We get Anakin jumping out, being crazy. Kenobi, like, what the hell? Zam Wessel, that was cool. We got to see the bar. We got to see Coruscant streets for the first time. You can't say that wasn't cool.
These are all good things. Like, you were telling me things that I agree with, that I'm like, yes. But then there's this little voice inside of me just screaming, no. Like, it just missed the mark. So, okay, I had heard, you know, I love to talk the behind-the-scenes stuff, but I had heard this one that he had finished shooting the shooting script, or he'd finished writing the shooting script, I think just a few days prior to handing it in. So I think the development time for Phantom Menace, and we'd have to read into this, but like for settings and characters, I think was more focused back then. So like the costumes, they knew they were doing this costume for this scene, for this. Things felt like overwhelming. Like the Coruscant bar was cool, but like we didn't really like get a lot of it. It was just like in and out. There weren't any really neat aspects. Or I mean, besides the death sticks person, which is just a kid with like antennas, there's like no like wow factors. Like when we first get to the
amount of aliens and different creatures and stuff was pretty cool though. Like we
could have even spent more time there. It was like we just like right through to the next.
So what would you have wanted to happen in the bar? Because I mean, like we had them go in. We got a quick pan around. Obi-Wan went and got a drink, which I thought was cool.
Yeah,
he got offered drugs.
Yeah,
death sticks.
Death sticks. Yeah.
Anakin hit on some chick with the Force. I pointed that out.
That's crazy.
That was great. And then Zam Wessel snuck up behind Kenobi. He took off her arm. Anakin had his moment of like, go back to your drinks, Jedi business. Like we had a good walk around the bar. We had conversation with Kenobi and the other guy, and you know, like we had a good couple minutes in there. There was a lot to pack into that movie,
and that's it. All great points. I think maybe one thing that I have overall with this movie, and I talk about Phantom Menace being bright and colorful and vivid. I think they filmed this on digital. This was the first time they did this, and they did color correction. The movie just always seems off to me. Like it doesn't. It just seemed like the Jedi almost seemed out of place in that. It didn't seem like space Star Wars. You know, when they're flying through Coruscant, it was almost that cyberpunk kind of feel, like, you know, which is neat and stuff, but there wasn't enough to it. I don't know. It just kind of seemed like very tame in what it was doing. And I think the big thing with that is like,
I'm gonna put a clip up here. I'm gonna put a clip up here, just them roaring through the city.
You know, the pod race to me was more exciting than the Coruscant City race.
The pod race was definitely more exciting, but the pod race was something crazy. I mean, like we've seen ship battles before. The pod race was different. Like the pod race was like Luke and Leia on the speeders, episode 6 in Endor, but like stakes. Times 10.
You feel the stakes. If they crash, the speeders are going to die. If Anakin crashes that pod, he's going to die. If Anakin or Obi-Wan, if anything happens, they're pretty much invincible in this. Now, I get in this movie that they kind of show you that the Jedi, like, kind of, they're at the peak of their power at this point. It's like, you know, kind of the downfall of them is starting to begin, and they're all... Anakin and Obi-Wan feel invincible. They feel like Obi-Wan jumps through the glass to get onto the droid, which we talked about should have been Anakin. It 100%. Should have been his characteristic that he did something rash.
Yeah.
You know, Obi-Wan just jumping out a window of Coruscant, this massive city, like, that he could just plummet to his death. All of a sudden, it, like, takes away from that impact.
Yeah.
So that, like, when Anakin is chasing Zam and, like, jumps out of the speeder and stuff, and, like, the timing for him to, I get, like, there's Star Wars. You got to have some disbelief, but it just didn't, I didn't feel the stakes. I just didn't feel the, like it was just going to happen.
They did feel super overpowered. I understand where you're coming from there.
Like when he's like, don't fly through the power couplings or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they do. And then what happens? Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, then, like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
And I think the Zam thing was kind of strange. So when the movie ends and you've watched the whole movie, you sit down and you go, Dooku wanted to kill Padme Amidala, so he outsourced it to his bounty hunter, Jango Fett, who was his clone template.
Yep.
And then he outsourced it to
Zam Wessel,
who then outsourced it to a robot with some...
Who outsourced it to little slugs.
Little slugs.
Yeah. Poison slugs.
And then what happens when, like, it goes bad? They all just, like, go back to each other and, like...
It's just a giant string.
You know what I mean? Like, why didn't Zam, if she was using the insects, why was she even still in Coruscant? Like, to make sure that they killed... Well, then just, like, don't be there.
To collect her droid.
The droid can come back.
She was waiting for her droid to come back.
Which led the Jedi back to her and got her killed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like you really could have easily just killed Amidala. Even, I think, when the first time I saw this, and, like,
Dooku definitely didn't want to be attached to that. Right?
But he ended up, like, what did Jango do?
In the end, yes, but, like, at the beginning, no. Like, if Zam killed Padme Amidala, they would have just been like, what the hell, right? Like, if those bugs just did it and the droid got away, they would have been like, whoa, what? Damn.
But you know what I mean? So, like, did Dooku not think that, like, okay, she's probably going to be under Jedi protection because I'm a Jedi and like I know that like we'd be doing this. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of seemed like not lazy, but like kind of like a stretch of stuff. So I think that took away from like the chase for me and things like that because it was just like it was a little bit strange. And I get you could go Phantom Menace, like what? Qui-Gon bets his ship and the Queen on a kid in a pot. It was Anakin though. Like that the point of that was to like build up Anakin and show you this wicked pilot and this connection with the Force. What did the Coruscant chase show us? The Jedi are invincible? Well, literally an hour later in the movie, we watched 180 of them very much prove that they're not invincible.
Well, maybe what George was trying to portray was maybe to a character like Zam Wessel, who's gun for hire, the Jedi are invincible. And because later on we see it get harder and harder as the movie goes on, right? Like Jango Fett versus Anakin or Kenobi, he struggles a lot more than he did with, right? Because Jango's not just a gun for hire now. And then we see, like you said, the Genoshan Pit, where, okay, it brings all those numbers down to 15 of the best. And then we go one step further. We see Anakin and Obi-Wan go to Dooku and get whooped, right? So it's like we see them at the beginning, like you said, when this movie starts, the Jedi are at their peak. So at the beginning, Kenobi's jumping out the window, Anakin's jumping out ships. They're doing the reckless Jedi stuff because they feel invincible, and they are invincible at the beginning of the movie because they're going up against nobodies. But then throughout this movie, they quickly realize every little bit, the villains get harder and harder and harder, and they're starting to put up more and more of a fight.
And they get the realization, and that's a great point. And I'll give it that. And like, if that was what the intent was, okay, I can appreciate that. The Jedi suck in this. The Jedi suck so hard in this movie. Jedi? All of them.
Obi and Annie are awesome.
Every single one of them. My favorite character, your favorite character. But that's who they are. Jocasta Nu. Like, they all suck. Obi-Wan sucks as a detective. Anakin sucks as a bodyguard. They're terrible. Like,
so they suck at their job, or like the characters suck? They suck at what they're trying to do? Because like I feel like we got an amazing Anakin Obi-Wan dynamic. We didn't get enough of it though. You know what I mean? Like we got Anakin and Padme, which was also awesome.
But I want to see Anakin and like his new man. I wanted to see that interaction. I wanted to see Master and Apprentice.
We all want more, right? Like I want more in between 2 and 3. I want more in between 1 and 2. But like during what we got, like I said earlier, they had to get everything they could into this movie, and we did get the Obi-Wan Anakin at the beginning. And then we got the Anakin and Padme, which had to happen.
Yep.
And then we got the reunion at the end with everybody, right? Like, and the movie's what, 2 hours and some change? Like,
it's a long one, yeah.
So I'm like, we had probably 45 minutes at the beginning where they were together, probably, when it really comes down to it. And then we probably had 45 minutes Anakin and Padme. And then we probably had 45 minutes at the end with everybody together.
I don't know what it was, and I know we talked this, like we got to take the medium for what it is. So we've seen episode 1 at this point. You watch episode 2. That's all you have. No Clone Wars, no the Clone Wars, no the Clone Wars movie. I don't know. I wanted to see more of the. I wanted to just see all the relationship. There's so much of this like Obi-Wan and like I failed Anakin and I wanted to see more of that.
So if we went 2 hours, would you have, and like had to get more Obi-Wan and Anakin in there, would you have done it more like montage style and like shorts almost like the 2D Clone Wars where it's like
I've done it.
Like little missions for like 2 or 3 minutes where they go and you see them struggle, get through it, boom, struggle, get through it, boom, or like what we got in the grand scheme of things?
Their first introduction, Obi-Wan Anakin, is them protecting Padme, right? Like, so why didn't we start off with? I almost feel like the intro to this movie was missing. Like we could have had a small Obi-Wan Anakin adventure, like them coming
that
up
would have been
the
great.
Tail end of a mission or something, where we really see Anakin not listen to Obi-Wan.
Yep.
And like, but he comes out ahead. You know what I mean? Obi-Wan's there to clean up. Anakin gets lucky.
Yeah.
And we see that arrogance. So we physically watch him be like, nah, trust me, I've got this.
Yeah.
And it works out for him. instead of when we see them, like Anakin, like point blank goes to Obi-Wan, like talks down to his master, and like embarrasses the out of him in public.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like it felt unwarranted because we hadn't seen any of that.
Yeah.
So maybe not a montage, but you give us a little bit at the beginning where like a little adventure of them.
I think that would have been very cool.
And then like then they go back to the council. The council's like, okay, we're gonna take you off of this stuff because like it's not working. Just go do like this little thing. Go be a bodyguard. Stay in the temple. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then from that, you could have split them up again and show that like they were both kind of reckless. So even though the council said like do this, Anakin kind of does the Padme thing, and Obi-Wan, goes to be Detective Kenobi. And you could have had that.
Yeah.
I feel like, it wasn't there for me. Throughout the whole movie, I kind of wanted more. Anakin was bad-mouthing Obi-Wan. Like, where was like the backhand or something? Where was like I wanted to see some repercussions. I wanted to see repercussions though. You know what I mean? Like serious ones. Like like him like pulling him aside, or like him with the council being like, my apprentice is like address the fact that like Anakin is a super hot-headed person. You know
I don't think Kenobi knew how.
So show that. You know what I mean?
Like
he wasn't Qui-Gon.
Exactly.
And I and like, so Obi-Wan, he's my favorite character, and this is the Attack of the Clones is the birthplace of Jesus 1 Kenobi.
Yeah.
Like that's where this comes from. The mullet is beautiful. We go back to the episode 1 saber, which I'm conflicted on because that's my like favorite saber growing up, but I remember seeing it in the theater and being like, no, he lost that down the shaft. Like before, there was Wikipedia or anything, it was like, no, I know his first saber's gone.
Yeah.
Why does his new saber look like that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Luke's didn't look like that in Return.
Yeah.
Why didn't he have like maybe one that looked like Qui-Gon's, like a blue? You know what I mean? Like something cool like that. You know what I mean? Or he just has Qui-Gon's saber, like the shell, and he built it. Whatever it is.
That was definitely something that was missed. Was lightsaber building in the prequels. Like, man, I think we get a little bit of it in the Clone Wars, but like, I want that in live action, like we got in Ahsoka. But even then, it wasn't good enough. I want like forcing the crystal in. Remember in 2D Clone Wars when Luminara and Dooley and Barriss go and like do the whole thing with the Force and pull it together?
The deleted scene from Return of the Jedi when Luke's assembling it in the cave, and like just what we see there. Obi-Wan makes it clear to Anakin, don't lose your saber. It's your life.
Yeah.
He loses his own saber. Anakin loses his own saber. And then the Jedi that show up on Geonosis, like in the pit.
Well, I think when he says that, he loses his saber like initially, and then that's where the lesson comes from, right?
No, he said, did he say, I've told you this before? This weapon is your life or something? Don't lose it?
Yeah, but I think that comes from like him losing it in the situation with Maul. He's like, if Qui-Gon's saber wasn't there, I'd have been dead. So this weapon
that's
is
a
your
great point. I didn't even think about that. I thought, like, again, it could have been something at the beginning. Like, we could have done this where, like, there was a tail end of a mission, and Anakin does something reckless with his saber that's really cool. Like, he, like, force throws it to, like, and it, like, gets sucked at, like, a vacuum or whatever, and they're like, Anakin, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, build it up more so than, or even explain, like, just say, like, I lost my saber and I would have lost my life against Maul had it not been for, you know what I mean? Maybe say that.
That'd have been so cool.
But
I'll give you that.
Anakin's saber. So this saber, we'll put it up. This episode 2 Anakin saber is his Vader saber.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
It's the same design. It's just, I think the shroud tip is black versus
it's
chrome.
Silver in this, and then his like grip pieces are thinner and longer.
Yeah. So the Vader saber is very iconic. You could have maybe addressed, like, because this was the saber that Anakin made, like, as a Padawan. Yeah. So you could have addressed that. You could have done something. You want to be really cool? You could have had, like, something happen in that saber that becomes Vader saber later. Like, you could have had a scene where, like, he does lose it or something, and
Dooku takes it and gives it to Palpatine, and Palpatine gives it back to him in episode 3.
Yeah.
Woo! And it's got a red blade.
When he gives, you know what I mean?
That'd be so sick. That'd be so sick.
There's scenes like that, like, and he knew this. Like, he was the creator of this. Like, George, like, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, like, little bits like that, The Obi-Wan, it could have been slightly different. Anakin, slightly different, And then they both lose their sabers, and they both just get, like, generic ones that get tossed them or whatever, and, like, it kind of devalued lightsabers for me. I don't know. It's
Didn't you like seeing them at the end with the blue and the green lightsaber though?
because it was like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
Maybe it was just different. It was just
Give them
different.
both
and it
green
was super
sabers,
cool.
then, you know what I mean?
That would have been even cooler. Or like a blue and a yellow, or a yellow and a green one or something. But
You know, I know this seems again like a really weird thing. Those Jedis didn't need to toss Anakin and Obi-Wan sabers.
what do you mean?
You know when they ride in the Jedi
Yeah.
and they toss some sabers?
Why not?
Why not just pull some off of dead Jedi?
They weren't dead at that time. They came in the arena right at they rushed in.
Yeah, I know.
Threw them the sabers. There was no dead Jedi.
Why give them what's the point of giving them sabers? You've got all these Jedi to protect them. They've lost their sabers. Did Jedi just carry extra sabers? And yeah, some Jedi do carry 2 sabers.
They brought extra.
But we never see anyone fight with 2. I don't think we see anyone fight with 2 sabers, do we? And
Not up to that point.
No. So why would they bring extra sabers?
Because they were going to rescue them.
Did they
knew
know
they were captive? Yes, they knew they weren't going to have their saber, else they wouldn't be captive.
I don't know.
So we got to take them sabers, take them some Padawan sabers, crank them up a little bit, and
just all right. But it could have been something where, like, you know what, they rescue them, 2 Jedi go down, and they just pull their sabers.
they could
I
have
don't know
took
why I'm
more if they
arguing
wanted.
sabers, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you're nitpicking.
I absolutely am. It's Star Wars. I'm going to nitpick the hell out of it. No, so that kind of, you know, there's more that could be done with this stuff. I mean, like we talked, the Anakin saber becoming Vader's, that would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
You know, so then it
So many what ifs though.
It almost devalues the Child Slayer 4000 or the Youngling Slayer 4000 because we don't even see Anakin make that saber, or there's nothing about it. He just has that.
We don't see any saber get made during any of the Star Wars live action.
No one addresses it. I guess that's what I talk about more. That like these sabers are their lives, and like no one addresses it.
Mm-hmm.
No one addresses why it looks like this. You know, I like the behind the scenes more for like episode 1 that like McGregor picked his, and then Qui-Gon picked, and they look the same. You know what I mean? Like the handles, and a master and apprentice, their sabers have like a connection of some sort. You know, like physical like, and then you go back to Luke and Obi-Wan. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That wasn't there. Like you could have addressed something that like Anakin's saber didn't look like Obi-Wan's, and Obi-Wan. You could have done stuff like that. You could have addressed them. You could have built up the sabers more, which I get. Like they're just a weapon, but like, you know, it's more than that. It's a weapon of a civilized time. Like I wanted to see more of that. The Jedi don't have attachments, but they have their sabers. You know.
Yeah. It'd be a great fan fiction. Is them doing that? Let's do that. So I guess we've been talking about our pet peeves and some of the
I'm
things
just
we don't like
started.
about this movie. What's the worst part about this movie?
What's the
in
worst
your opinion?
Part? So Coruscant Chase wasn't great.
And we're not talking about what could have been. We're talking about what happened. Like,
because it's not fair to me. Like what could be. Finding out later that there were a lot of sets designed, like episode 1 and miniatures, I didn't realize that at the time. I think the biggest thing about Attack of the Clones that bothers me is there's something about watching it. I'm not sure it's the digital film, the bloom, the color grading or something. It looks different out of all of them. It's too bright. I'm not, very knowledgeable in the stuff, but there's something different about it. It just felt off. Like, I get you're going to use blue screen stuff. It seemed much more prominent in this. It seemed much more obvious. It seemed like, I don't know, there wasn't, like, again, they probably use the same cinematographer, but maybe the fact they shot digitally and then changed the stuff, like, it just felt not as real to me.
So the first time you watched it, when you were how old?
I think I was 11.
Did you see the blue screen like you're talking now, or is it because we've got amazing stuff like Multiverse of Madness and Endgame and like those crazy high budget CGI movies that are like, obviously they're going to make things like this look old and dated.
I think watching episode 1 really did me a favor because we talked about this. The CGI in that is great. Like, there are some really CGI heavy scenes. The Gungan droid battle is probably the weakest because it's all CGI. But a lot of times when things are colorfully spliced in, or it's part of it, even like the pod race, I don't know, man, it seemed better than the stuff in this movie. I felt like this movie was almost a step back. Like there's a scene where Obi-Wan's walking through the Jedi temple. Like I talked about it, and like it just seems too grand with not enough going on and too clean. Like it seems like it's digitally, and for all I know, that could have actually been a real set, but there's something about it that just didn't look real.
Mm-hmm.
So the backdrop to the Coruscant chase wasn't great. Even the initial the explosion on the Naboo, the Naboo ship on the platform seemed strange to me. The whole movie kind of had this weird feel.
See, I think Coruscant, like, I have to disagree with you on Coruscant, but in like in the streets of Coruscant, I think they looked crazy and open and lots of variety. Like there was different ships, there was aliens, there was all that. When it comes to the temple, I'll agree with you there. There was a lot of CGI shots that didn't look great when you're looking for them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you're focusing on what's happening in the foreground, you're not going to notice it. I don't know why George did what he did, because I'm like, Star Wars had to have had a massive budget. Maybe it was on a time crunch. Maybe it was a money thing. But I'm like, once we got to Revenge of the Sith, there was none of that. Right?
It feels different.
Yeah.
It feels tonally like different.
And I don't know why he didn't do that in episode 2, because I feel like he could have done it in episode 2.
Like, was he going for like an old school kind of like those old movie serials, like the Flash Gordon stuff? Like, was he trying to make it feel campy? Because then maybe, yeah. But like,
potentially, I didn't think about it that way.
Another thing that kind of bothered me, because like it could just be one of those stories. Another thing that bothered me is the clones. There were no clone troopers. It was all digitally produced. So again, where the Gungan droid battle was weak, we got the clones and the droids. We got the same.
The clones were so much stronger than the droids or the Gungans, though, like CGI wise.
Oh, but you're still CGI. You know what I mean? Like you can. Okay, so the scene where there's like a few 100,000 and they're loading onto the acclamators, you could have shot 2 or 3 groups and then superimpose those over to make them look bigger. But you're naturally going to have movements or shifting of people within that, or like that just look more natural than the way they did.
But I think like they're clones, and like they're supposed to be doing everything to the T, right? They've been training to do everything to the T. Their whole 10 years of life, which is really 20 years of life, has been trained to do this exactly. So if they can't all step on the beat,
but doesn't Lawless Singh say that they have like they problem solve better than droids? It's like droids have like a hive mind, they have one collective thinking, where clones are like, yeah, they're all the same person, but you know, if you grew up in a situation that was slightly different, you're still you, but you may have learned lessons more. So in 20 years, these clones, it's just like the army. They probably had a job. This clone is a combat engineer.
Yeah.
This clone is a gunner. Even though they're the same clones, they're going to have different personalities from what they get. You know, like maybe the gunner is more jovial or whatever, just because of his role, and like that becomes his personality. Because going ahead, Dave Filoni said the Clone Wars was about showing that they had personalities and stuff. You know, showing that some were better than
but they still have to be able to like march.
Yes, but I just felt like when we see stormtroopers, we think like they're essentially faceless clones, you know what I mean? But they're not all the same size and they don't all have the same movement or whatever. This just felt strange. Okay, did you not like in Kenobi when we saw Order 66 and some...
Oh, definitely. But like, I wouldn't say no to live action clones, but I don't hate what we got. I think it was great.
The Ahsoka flashback to the Clone Wars, where we see them, those are, I think, Phase 2 troopers on the Siege of Mandalore.
There was both, I think.
Yeah,
there was Phase 1 in the first battle, Phase 2 in the second battle.
When you see some of the Phase 2 running, if you go back and try and cut a clip, we'll try and put it in, you see like the pauldrons like moving up and down, and you see like the armor shifting and stuff. And I know this is like way nerdy in universe lore, but like, you know, going from the Phase 1 to Phase 2, you could have shown that like they were bulkier and stuff, and then Phase 2 they could move better. With CGI, like there's clipping and stuff, like it just didn't, it felt too clean to me. It didn't feel like these guys were wearing armor, be it bulky or, you know, streamlined. Like it just didn't, they were cool. Don't get me wrong. I like the clones. Like they're cool. And then Legion, I play as them. Like, I get it. but it was something missing.
Did you like them better in episode 3?
What do we see of them in episode 3?
Well, we see them at the beginning, battle over Coruscant in the ships,
Kind of.
and then we see Order 66.
We see Obi-Wan with
we see that.
That's the first real Commander Cody and stuff, and like
there's got to be more.
But I think even in that one, some of the clones have some better moves. Like I think there's one scene in episode 3, and we'll watch it when we watch it again, where like a clone, I think like hits a droid or something. Punches a droid, and there's one where like he runs up on a droid and he's like shooting. Like they felt a little bit more like soldiers, or like, you know. Again, we've talked about this other times. This was the start of the Clone Wars. I know it just wanted to be the start, but like show some serious battles. Like we got
200 Jedi dying in a pit.
That was pretty intense. You know what I mean? Like you see that, but like the Geonosian battle is just essentially waves of clones landing. You know, like Americans in helicopters, and like literally running at waves of droids that are running that end up turning. And you know what I mean? Like
the clones were just like getting the Jedi out of there. It wasn't a fight. It was. Oh, sorry, no. After that, it was. But like in the pit, they went in to just get the Jedi out. And then they flew out, and then it was waves running at each other. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Like, what was your objective there? Like, but
if
you wanted to rescue the Jedi, and then just stay in planetary orbit with your capital ships, and like anything launches, bomb the fuck out of it.
Yeah,
sorry,
George. That's what George wanted, though. Is that old style? Like he was all about that, right? Like he wanted samurai stuff. Clearly he wanted waves of guys running at each other, like War of 1812, you know what I mean? Like,
but these are clone troopers with blasters, you know what I mean? Like, I like some of the diversity in some of the droids that we saw. Like, you get the
super battle droids.
The super battle droids are a really cool introduction. The spider droids, the Hellfire ones, so the ones with the spinning wheels, the hard cell transport ships, which I didn't know were ships for the longest time. They're so they're really cool elements in that, but there's not enough of it. You know what I mean? And there's things that, my favorite ship of all time, the LAAT, is cool. I'm sorry, it's the coolest transport ship.
Yeah.
So cool. And you actually see that the doors work, and like, you know what I mean?
It's so nice.
I love that ship.
Yeah.
In Battlefront 2, or Battlefield 2, is it the PS2 one?
Okay, yeah.
When you Battlefront. Battlefront. When you play the space missions, I would always take that.
Yeah.
Even if I was dogfighting.
It's so nice.
It's so good.
Yeah.
The ball laser cannon spinning on the side, and like.
So what's the worst part?
I know. I got away from this. The feel, I don't know. It was too clean. It was
the filter they put on it.
Maybe whatever it was. You know, people complain about that. Like the music, the music didn't slap like it did in the first one. They reused a lot of tracks, or they used Duel of the Fates in like the worst possible.
Bro, that was perfect. That was so good. Anakin ripping on his speeder to go rip down the Tusken
Why not have
Raider?
Duel of the Fates play when he cuts down the Tuskens?
Because that was different. That was darker. It was darker than Duel of the Fates.
But that's what I mean. Like, there's the Duel of the Fates, like the good and the dark. You know what I mean? Like, it was just him riding.
He was already in the dark. His mom just died. That was a moment of ultimate darkness.
There's no iconic song from this one, is there? There's Duel of the Fates from the first one.
Yeah.
There's Battle of the Heroes in the third one.
Yeah.
What does this one have?
I don't know. Probably nothing.
The
crazy.
recycled droid, battle, like that's pretty cool. You know, they use that for the clones.
At the end,
it almost sounds like the Imperial March.
I guess that would be the iconic song from this one.
But that's the same one that they use in episode 1 when the droids attacking the gun guns. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And and when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon go to land on the ship, like that song's pretty.
Yeah. Maybe John Williams was
slacking on this one. So what do I like? Okay, I'm trying to make up a lot of excuses here. I just didn't like it. I don't know why. I don't know. You're gonna like.
Will you watch it again?
You know what? I would.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of Star Wars movies to get through, and maybe after all the content, and I sit and make you watch Andor, maybe I will take this in again.
Yeah.
I think I would appreciate maybe a behind the scenes sort of watch to kind of understand some more. Okay, things I didn't like. Like
you can't say you didn't like the saber battles though.
I can? No. The Yoda.
You didn't like that? What did you want if
I don't know what I wanted.
We're seeing Yoda use a lightsaber, he can't stand still.
But like, it was a lot of flips for a 900-year-old creature.
Yeah, but he's using the Force.
Flips.
He's not. It's not like he's using his muscles. He's using the Force.
I think maybe like Jedi's like their lightsaber is their like last resort. They have so many tools in the toolbox to
Not at this time in the galaxy.
But you would think like that's how they would do things.
You would think.
Okay.
But now it's not. It's instantly.
Could I have done without seeing Yoda's lightsaber in the prequels? Maybe. And just knew that he never had a lightsaber, that he was just so powerful he didn't need it.
I wouldn't have liked that.
It's like, what did Dooku and Yoda do?
They had a moment.
They like throw some like light stuff at each other or whatever, like
till Dooku pulled the ceiling down.
Yoda struggles, but then we see people like pull starships down later.
Who?
Right.
Well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. We see Vader,
Vader
do
does,
it, but that's
Vader
different.
does.
Vader's different.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the Dooku Yoda should have been like a real battle of like the Force. And, maybe I'm not the person to write it, but like really do some intricate stuff. Things we haven't seen. Like maybe Yoda is able to like use a mind control on Dooku of some sort. And we see like it's revert. Whatever it is, like there should have been more and more. Yeah, more lightning and Yoda doing this. And
Yoda did absorb lightning for the first time we've ever seen.
What happens if like Yoda gave back the lightning and you're like,
did.
Whoa.
He did. He goes and then shoots it back.
But he shoots it back. But like, I mean, Yoda using his own or force judgment or whatever they call it. And like,
that's Plo Koon thing. Yoda can't do that.
Why can't Yoda do it? Isn't Yoda the best?
Yeah, because Yoda's not Plo Koon.
Isn't Yoda the best?
But Anakin can also like see into the future. Like they all have their own special gifts. Doesn't Kanan have a special gift? Like they all have like a special gift.
There's things that they're stronger in. That's what I mean. Like I don't understand what Yoda is necessarily. Like he's the wisest because he's not. The Jedi Council, I cannot reiterate, like sucks in this movie. Like I get that's the point that they're trying to stress.
Mm-hmm.
They're so arrogant. They're so full of themselves. They're so like just lost in it. And I can appreciate that that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to show like this once great order is like it's crumbling from within. And you're starting to see the cracks and stuff. Yoda didn't need to do all those backflips.
That's the lightsaber form he uses, though.
Yeah, I get it.
And then you may not wanted to see it, but I would say the majority of fans probably did. And if we didn't, they would have been like, "Why the hell don't we get to see the Grand Master use a lightsaber?" And I would fall on that side. I'd rather see him use a lightsaber than not.
But wouldn't you then have expected him to win outright against Dooku?
Well, how does it end, right? Because they're bouncing around, then Dooku
he goes to drop something on Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Yoda stops.
And Yoda has to, and then Dooku runs away.
So why isn't it that like? I don't know. It felt too contrived.
So Dooku got beat, or Dooku knew he was about to get beat. Used a way to get out of it. It's like what we needed Dooku for the beginning of Episode 3. So what did you want from Yoda? Kill him? Take him captive?
Wouldn't it be cool if Yoda did something like pulled down a ship or like did something with the Force that we hadn't seen at that point?
He did. He absorbed lightning. I thought that was pretty damn cool. Then we watched Obi-Wan and Anakin get yeeted by it. So
Anakin loses like a lot of his arm. Like Luke
up to like here.
Luke loses his hand. Anakin loses an arm.
Yeah.
Like that's
so he loses it like up to here, but then in Episode 3 and all of the Clone Wars, it's
down
here.
There,
yeah.
We should do an edit of like where he lost it and what they've had it.
Yeah.
So, like I just show his hand like all the way back here, and that's his lightsaber style.
Yeah.
So
that was the other thing, right? Yoda is Form 4, which same as Darth Maul. So I'm like, it only makes sense for him to be jumping around and diving and flipping off things and
drop kicking things in the head like Maul.
Yeah.
Hey, you've heard me rant and rave. Let's hear from the fan that quite enjoys the movie. So like what did you think were some of the weaker points if you had to point
the weaker points? One of the big one when you pointed it out was the Jedi Council and the backgrounds in that. but I'm never going to notice that unless I'm looking for it. That sucked. What else? Like, it's hard to even find bad parts.
Quick question: Yoda, did you like puppet Yoda or CGI Yoda better?
I like CGI Yoda better. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's cleaner. It's so much cleaner. Like, the puppet's iconic, but like when it really comes down to it, it's like when you go back and you watch the original. I think it's episode 5 when you see the hologram of the Emperor, and it's like a paper sheet crumpled up, and then you go back and rewatch it, and it's Ian.
Yeah,
and you're like, okay, that's much better. Like, it's just
and I can get when we were watching Phantom Menace how they did the digital, and I never realized that. I kind of like the puppet for what they're trying to go for, but I can understand the CGI.
So I like the CGI Yoda. Like, it feels cleaner and better and more suiting. What was I about to get at? Oh yeah, this is my favorite love story of all time. Anakin's my favorite character. Padme's my childhood crush. So I'm like, there it is, right? Like, that's my favorite love story. They fall in love. She denies him. He's like, keeps trying. It's cheesy as hell when you're an adult and you look at it. I totally understand. But when you're a kid,
it's
who these movies are made for, it's right up your alley. You're like, this is it. And then, the hero comes in, saves the day.
So we had a female viewer with us watching this.
Yeah.
And her notes were about how hot Hayden Christensen is.
Yeah.
So I think for that demographic, they did it. But she made some really good points that, like...
Well, they got both sides. They got us with Padme.
With Padme and then with Anakin. So, okay, we can get that. There's some stuff that I didn't pick up on. Like, when she's looking at him and she's like, you've grown. Like, she is taking those Jedi robes off one piece at a time.
You think, eh?
Oh my God, yeah. Let's put it up. Like, she's staring him up and down and she's like, you've grown. She wants some of that bananakin. Okay?
But then she puts herself in check right away and says, you'll always be that little kid I knew on Tatooine.
But that's like her, because we talked about this, because she's been raised from a very young age as like the queen and then the senator. She hasn't had that time to grow up and be a child. So she's always like kind of like being proper and prim and like, nope, that's the way it is. And like, you've grown and flirting. And nope, but this is like proper to the fact. I mean, so, it's a fun little love story.
I know a lot of people don't like the love story, but I like the love story.
It's an interesting one. I mean, like, because they have the connection from the first movie. Again, is it weird because we saw him so much younger than her in the first movie?
Well, isn't that every boy's dream? Remember when you were 9 and you saw that hot 14-year-old and you're like, whoo, baby! And you're like, Anakin's dogging over here.
What am I going to do if I ever had that chance?
And then when you're 17, you see that hot, like, 22-year-old and you're like, and like, it's like every boy's dream. So, I mean, like, he hit us right in the feels again.
All right, okay. George Lucas setting us up.
It'd be weird if it was the other way around.
Wouldn't it?
But it's not, so...
I guess, yeah.
I didn't find anything wrong with that. I love the action. I think it's very well done. I think Yoda and Dooku's fight was great. I think Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Dooku's fight was great. I think...
is it better than Darth Maul? So if we're watching these sequentially and all we've seen is 4, 5, and 6, then 1 and 2...
Definitely not. Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon is like... In the first 6 is the second best fight.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. This movie, I stress, is like good, but it's just good.
Yes. It's not great. It's not amazing.
It doesn't, to me, there's no point of greatness in this movie. I think that's what it is.
Well, there is. The Geonosian battle scene was amazing.
Okay, like the Jedi
in the pit? We see the different animals, whatever you want to call them, beasts. We see the different aliens. Right, the Nexu, it's the Acolyte or something.
Yeah.
And the Reek. We see those. Then we see the droids come in. We see 200 Jedi.
We see the Geonosians too, which are really cool.
We see the Geonosians, which are so cool.
The battle droids look like them, the faces and stuff.
We see the droid factory, which I thought was super cool.
Yeah.
We see Jango Fett get his head cut off by Mace Windu, which is awesome.
The deleted scene is even better, where he like takes a few parts of like his arm and Okay.
So that was all super great. Like, there was parts where I'm like, very hard to live up to the Duel of Fates. very hard to live up to the Obi Annie in episode 3, but it was better than any of the original fights. Like, I think
Yeah,
some
but
of
you got to
they're
look at them in
old.
their own. You got to look at like the trilogies,
Yeah,
the
they're
prequels, and the sequels, like as their own. You can't quite.
but in that case, then 2 is definitely the worst out of the 3, but it's not the worst out of the 6, and
I convinced him.
it's definitely not anywhere near the bottom of the 9.
No,
So,
and that's what I'm saying. I think this one falters because it is the weakest of the prequels, which in and of themselves have a big like name to carry. And I think that's where I stress. Yeah, there's some aesthetics I don't like, and you can argue story. To me, there was no like, put that scene on. Oh, that movie's on. Put it on.
for me, there always was.
Put on the the Qui-Gon duel. Oh, put on the Obi Annie fight. Put on the Battle of Coruscant. Put on the Battle of Endor.
For me, it was always the Geonosian Pit. I loved the Geonosian Pit.
I think watching all those Jedis being slaughtered just like
it's hard. So was watching Luke lose his hand, find out his dad's Darth Vader, and
But what is it that like? I mean, there's so many like background Jedi that just die. Like, okay, Coleman Trevor.
yeah,
What a terrible death.
yeah.
What is it? How does he get up there in the first place? And then just like goes to surprise.
Done.
Really,
Yeah.
really, man. Was he not a Jedi Master?
I don't think so. He may have been a master.
Just not on the council.
Yeah, he wasn't on the council.
But I think he was a master. So you're telling me that, like,
This is Jango Fett, though.
man,
I
Mace
get
Windu
it.
like just undresses him like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't even care.
So I think this is how we see power levels back in the day, though. Like, now we see it in Kenobi. It's done so well with like the power gap between Reva and
Vader.
Yeah, and then in Ahsoka, it's done great between like Shin and Ahsoka versus like Sabine and Ahsoka, or
Right?
Sabine and Shin. So like we see the power levels better now. But like we can watch Ahsoka and Shin fight, and then Sabine and Shin fight, and be like, wow, that really shows how much more powerful Ahsoka is. But then when we go back and watch episode 2, we see Mace and Jango fight, and we go, damn, Jango just murked him, or Mace just murked him. But then we look at Coleman Trevor and Jango fight, and we go, well, Coleman Trevor sucks. But we look at it as like, he just sucks. But no, it's like Jango was awesome.
He's just that
Jango
level.
was friggin' awesome. And like killing Jedi all the time, right? Like in the comics, he was killing Jedi.
Yeah.
So that's not foreign to him. Coleman Trevor could have been one of some old dudes who just sat at the council, and then he was like, all right, my time's come, boom. And then Jango was like, whoosh, done. Like,
You make great points. I don't know what it is that like maybe just some of the characterization. Like Django even feels like some of the decisions he does make him feel stupid. Like I just like him fighting Obi-Wan, like that whole like. So then he should have mopped the floor with Obi-Wan, right?
well, it's
But Obi-Wan
Obi-Wan.
wasn't even a master then. Obi-Wan was a knight.
But Obi-Wan, it's Obi-Wan.
Listen, I don't want Obi-Wan to die, but like, you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't it like?
Obi-Wan's one of the better Jedi, though. Like, he's not Coleman Trevor.
No,
Right.
I get it. Even like when he's dropping the death charges,
He's the
sizing
master of
charges.
defense. He's not a master of defense. He's the master of defense. Like, he's not your average Jedi. He's known around the council for being the master of Sora Suit. Like,
But I didn't even feel like that in this one. Like we don't see the iconic stance that he has in the third one. It feels like he's really struggling against Dooku, where it should have been that like he can totally like Dooku's the best duelist,
mm-hmm.
but Obi-Wan can completely hold his ground, but he can't do any offensive.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows he's a total master of defense. I can block everything, but I have no opening. Like I'm getting tired. It's getting harder for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to fail eventually. Like it just seems like Dooku very easily like wipes the floor with him too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, no, Obi-Wan is supposed to be like, he beat Darth Maul. He's first to beat a Sith. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, give me some better writing in this. You know what I mean?
I'll give you that. That would have been cool.
Again, and I have to like take the movie for what it is and not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I'm seeing all those Jedi die, seeing like, and there's even in the scene we watched it where they're in the pit and they're down to like 15 or 20, and then all of a sudden like Kiadi Mundi
and they walk out of nowhere.
Yeah, then like the droids like escort them, and it's like you just killed 180 of them and you didn't kill these ones. Why?
Yeah.
And they surrendered to you?
Yeah.
And they're perfectly fine?
Yeah.
Come on.
That was a little cheesy.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Okay. we should have had more conflict in Dooku, because the whole Dooku trying to convince Obi-Wan in hindsight, like Dooku wasn't a bad guy. Like he was trying to. Clone Wars made him a bad guy. But maybe we should have seen him fight in the battle.
Against who?
Anyone.
All the Jedi?
Maybe he should have been cutting him down left, right, and center.
That would have been so cool.
Wouldn't that have like shown his power level? So like
cool.
They get down there and they're fighting, and like, you know, the Jedi think they have it. There's 200 and there's only one Sith or whatever you want to call it, the battle droids, but he is just like left, right, and center.
I'll give you that. That would have been phenomenal.
You know, he's like, the Jedi are like blocking blaster bolts back, and he's like turning their blaster bolts back on them.
Yeah.
And like they're surprised.
Yeah.
Or like a few of them jump together, and we just see how good. I get like Christopher Lee, great actor, but like when you cast someone that's like 70, 80 for the role, like Sam Jackson, you're not going to get the athleticism. So figure out something to do.
Yeah.
You know, like we got
it in episode 3.
And we see the deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Like that choreography is phenomenal, but obviously they couldn't do all that. But yeah, maybe have Dooku kill a few Jedi and show his reluctance to do it. Because, you know, they were his friends and family, and, you know, he was part of... So, like, show him beat them, but, like, maybe he's the one that beats Sakura. And
well, he didn't want to. He's up there, and he's like, oh, it's tragic. I can't remember the exact words. He's like, oh, I'm upset that I have to do this, but actually do something.
But, like, show him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, show Ayla Sakura attacking him, and, like, he disarms her, and, like, doesn't kill her, and that's why she goes back to the pit. You know what I mean? Show him be better than everyone except for...
Mace or something.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, show, don't tell. Show me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Again, we're going back to what if, so.
Yeah, I know.
So, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with something that is on the more positive side.
Yeah, we'll cut back. You asked me, or I asked you, what were your standout moments? And like, what would you take that was memorable from this movie? Padme's outfits.
Yes, I have to fully agree with that one.
I think as a young man,
yep,
you know, experiencing things in life, this movie certainly spoke to me in that aspect.
Yes.
Yeah, Natalie Portman was absolutely like the teenage crush.
Yep.
And it's funny because we watched the movie with a female viewer, and she was just like totally our age, totally smitten with Hayden Christensen. And like she was calling him hot Anakin in this one. And it's funny because I always thought hot Anakin was episode 3, and she's like, no, that's even hotter Anakin. She's like, this is hot Anakin. It's like, okay. Yeah. So I think we certainly felt it. Like I know there's that famous thing that like George Lucas had her wear more revealing clothing.
Yeah.
And stuff.
She talked about that.
Yeah. Did feel kind of strange because she was like ideally like royalty and then a senator and stuff, and like his goal was just to get her like in like the most like thirst trapped outfits and situations.
She was luring Anakin.
I mean, come on.
Plus George, he had his moment with Carrie Fisher. He was like, I'm gonna use this power again before I lose it, probably.
It's you go from Carrie Fisher in like, you know, like full Hoth regalia to like the iconic Slave Leia. Here you go from like these episode 1 like really cool Queen Amidala costumes. Even when she's assaulting the throne room, like there's nothing sexualized. You know, she's young. And then in this, it's like the multicolored like pastel dress with like no back, right down to like lower end. The black choke me choker.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like she is really giving Anakin the signals right there. And then the white outfit that becomes the iconic, very skimpy white outfit.
Yeah.
Not the same level of design as like the Padme costumes, but like, you know, they're memorable.
She was also on vacation too, kind of though, right? Like,
yeah.
So she wasn't dressing up to be the queen. She was dressing up to impress Anakin, right? So like,
which she knew what she was doing, right? Like
exactly.
From the out,
but she also didn't have to be full dress and headdress that I can't move in. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and she wasn't queen anymore. I get
exactly.
That. I can appreciate that. But no, jokingly, like those. Yeah, I guess that is something that does kind of stick with.
And then George just wanted to use Natalie Portman for one more of her great assets that she had, right? Like,
No, just a funny one there. Yeah.
Yes, very standout moments with Padme for sure. Very iconic from this
Yeah.
movie.
But
This movie way more than the next one.
well, that's what I mean. It was just this one. Like, there's certain things that they tried in just this movie that just kind of, I'm not sure if didn't hit the mark for me. Um,
So you didn't like Padme's outfit?
no, that hit the mark.
Yeah.
That hit all the marks. And,
for me, some of the other standout moments were, well, the big one for me was the fall of Anakin, and like how this is my favorite part of the movie. This is the biggest standout movie. It's just all of the different parts throughout the movie that show him turning into Darth Vader, and like it's all the stepping stones that I think a lot of people missed if you're not like looking deep for it.
Yep.
That lead into episode 3, where there's more stepping stones, and you understand why he turned into Darth Vader. I wrote a couple points down, just like what stood out to me in the movie. When at the beginning, Anakin's like almost embarrassed to meet Padme again, right? He's so excited. He's like sweating.
Obsessed.
He's sweating. He is obsessed.
Because he said that's all he's thought about. She's all he's thought about.
And then what does Obi-Wan do? Embarrasses him.
Yeah.
Right in front of her and everybody that she's with. Yes, Anakin kind of started it, but again, he's on edge, and Obi-Wan kind of should have known that. And like, he literally said that, and like Obi-Wan, yeah, he could have pulled him aside and talked to him, but instead he was like, know your place, young Padawan. Like, your time will come. Yeah. Right in front of the one Anakin's trying to impress, right? Like, so that was a big moment for sure for Anakin. And then he calls him out right after that when Anakin's like, I know what's going on in that room. Like, I can sense everything that's happening in that room. And Obi-Wan goes, your senses are not as attuned as mine, my young apprentice. Anakin's the chosen one. How does Obi-Wan know that Anakin can't actually tell what's in that room?
But I think this goes to the issue overall. The Jedi are so lost in this. They're so arrogant. So they're kind of trying to force their dogma onto Anakin, and it's like oil and water. Like, it's just not mixing.
Exactly. So that's another big part of like why Anakin's like resentful, right? Like, I'm more powerful than you, and you're going to sit here and tell me that I have no idea what's going on in there. And then literally when something goes down, Anakin was the initiator. He was like, oh, and then Obi-Wan was like, I sense it too. And then they ran. You know what I mean? So I'm like, Anakin caught it first. So actually, you're wrong, Obi-Wan. And then Obi-Wan questions Anakin's literally every single decision that Anakin tries to make in this movie. Obi-Wan's on his back right there. You may not be right. Make sure you're doing this right. Make sure you're doing that. Don't do this. Do that. Don't do this. So he questions Anakin's every decision and everything that Anakin wants to do. That would be super frustrating. I'm sure at some point in your life you've had a teacher or a mentor or something that's done that to you, and there's nothing more irritating than that, right? Especially when you end up being right. Like, earlier in the podcast, you said something like, we should have seen Anakin do something that Obi-Wan told him not to do and then come out on top and be like, hey.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't get that portrayed as well as we got Obi-Wan just nagging on Anakin all the time. Anakin just gets right rowdy and starts yelling at Zam Wessel. Like, that was a little dark, where Obi-Wan's like trying to talk to her and Anakin's like, no, tell us now. Yes. Like,
yeah, because it was a threat on someone that he cared about. So it was like,
that came through a little bit there, like the emotion side of things. Right after all of this goes down, we go to Palpatine's office.
They have a great relationship in this, and I do enjoy that.
Palpatine is just hyping him up.
Yeah.
He goes, you're the greatest Jedi ever, Anakin. No one could be who you are. Like, you're the greatest Jedi ever. Oh, don't listen to the Jedi when they tell you that you're not doing things right. You're like, just literally gassing him up in every sentence of that little scene. It's a compliment to Anakin or some sort of...
He knows what he's doing.
Exactly. So that's just greasing Anakin up, you know what I mean? To slide into the dark side when the time comes. These are all points on how Anakin fell, right? Like, this is what everything I'm saying. And then, so then Anakin's starting to have dreams about his mother, right?
Yeah.
And he goes and talks to, was it Yoda or Obi-Wan? I don't know. Goes to talk to one of them, and they say, just be mindful of the Force. Don't think about it. Like,
yeah.
And that's super messed up. So that's a massive point in Anakin's like life where he's like, wow, the Jedi aren't so good. And why am I here? Why am I doing this if they won't even let me take care of my mom? That's why I came to do this, right? He says to her, I'll be back one day to free you.
Think about that whole process. At no point between the 10 years of Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones did anyone do anything for Anakin's mother. They knew he was the chosen one.
Yep.
They knew all this stuff. And like, what would it have cost for them to even pay for her freedom? Or the queen to pay for his freedom?
Good point.
Someone to just pay for her freedom.
Good point. I never thought of that. Yeah, 'cause especially Padme.
She's queen.
Of Naboo. She's not queen of Mustafar. She's queen of Naboo. Like,
so, okay,
good point.
If they don't take galactic credits, she has a ship or something.
Yeah.
She has something that she can go to Watto and be like...
100%. You wanna N1? Watto would be giddy.
That's how it gets on Tatooine.
That would have been good.
But...
that would have been good.
I don't know. Is it weak writing again? That bogs me up.
Maybe.
Because you're right. Like, there's all these great little points. And it's not like there's a lot of subtext that you have to look through in the movie. It's just almost convoluted with other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I still stress, the Jedi suck in this. And I think it's this movie, you're right, is like the big emphasis that like Anakin's starting to realize they suck.
Yeah.
They're not that good.
Yeah.
I'm just as good as them, but they push me down. So you need to see Anakin's level of like arrogance and like his weakness in himself, but he's also like super strong.
Mm-hmm.
So you need that fine balance of like I said, it would be neat if they had some sort of situation that really showed Anakin coming out ahead just because of him being him.
Yeah.
I mean, like the assassination attempt, like it, he jumped in and stopped those things, but like Obi-Wan was there too. They going through the droid factory, he got captured. He didn't really, and then he loses against Dooku. There's nothing that he does that proves that like, yeah, I'm the chosen one. Mm-hmm. I'm really that good. I'm really that strong. You know what I mean? There was no feat or something that should have happened.
I agree with you there. Definitely, we didn't get any crazy Anakin moments.
Something that really shows, because again, I agree with your points. Yeah, like we're seeing, that we see through the lies of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what we are building up to.
Yeah, but
they could have done more of that. They could have why did he not it could have been a plot point to be like, Obi-Wan, why has the council not done something about my mother?
Yeah.
I know you don't free slaves or whatever, but this is my mother.
That would have been a great conversation.
Why can we not do something? Why is there, you can't put me, there's something you can do.
Yeah.
And that would have been more to so you could have even oh man, I'm getting ahead of myself here. You could have had the movie start off with them, the tail end of some sort of mission, and it's a rescue of some sort. It's something kind of equivalent to well, why don't we go get my mother? Or why don't we if the Jedi's willing to do this personal rescue or this personal thing or whatever it was, and kind of show they kind of mentioned that they're they're secret police for the wealthy essentially, and the Senate, show them do something for
the people,
the affluent, yeah. And then have him be well, why not my mother?
Mm-hmm.
And then have some other Jedi be oh, it's not the way. And it's really start to see the corruption, really be in your face at
Well, I feel like what I'm getting at is we do see the corruption, just maybe in a different way.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. That would have been cool. But then we're getting back to that what if. The
what ifs, yeah.
Where we'll have to just start doing fan theories. Because these are all amazing what ifs. But
and just walk through it. No, but I do I think that is a great point. You really start to see the transition from Anakin to what becomes Darth Vader.
Not only did they tell him to stop worrying about his mom and that it's not real and whatever, then he goes to save his mom and she dies in his arms. And then we really see the true Anakin come out, right? He taps into the dark side, kills an entire tribe of Tusken Raiders, as we know, the women and the children. No chill, foreshadowing there, right? And then goes back to the homestead and has this panic attack with Padme and says, oh, I'm not strong enough and one day I'll be stronger and they're holding me back. And basically says everything he says to Obi-Wan just in episode 2, right? So we see all of that. And then at the end, we see him really just give in to his feelings and marry Padme, make out with her in the shit, in the thing where I know, they definitely sleep together off camera too, because there's a dynamic change. Like we talked about it while we were watching.
we were
it,
watching.
Right?
Yeah,
And there's a dynamic change
where she's very much playing that like kind of hard to get, and she's pushing back and she's teasing, and it was our other person got it too. And then all of a sudden, it's like a 180, and it's like they've done it because now the dynamic is different between them.
Exactly.
And like maybe it wasn't good that they did it because like now they're going to be kind of an unhealthy like couple.
It wasn't good in like the sense that then both of them would have stuck to their ways, but clearly like their ways were both flawed. So I'm like, good in what sense is all just a point of view, right? Like Anakin would have stayed being more of a Jedi, which I mean, at this point they sucked. Padme would have stayed being a politician. They sucked. It was corrupt. Like both of them kind of got the best of what they could have got by sleeping together, because like they both had the love that they wanted, right? Like neither of them wanted to be they both wanted to be what they wanted, what they were, but not as much as they loved each other. But what I was getting at is like he just gave it all up at the end of the movie. You can clearly tell he's done with the Jedi at this point. He's like, I'd rather be me than what Obi-Wan wants me to be. Right? He marries Padme. Yeah, they keep it secret, but if he was truly a Jedi, he wouldn't have married Padme. Padme would not have married Anakin if she was truly a Sen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so Anakin already gave up the Jedi at the end of this movie, in my opinion. Like at the beginning of 3, he's a Jedi, but he's not Obi-Wan. He's not the Council.
Yeah,
he wants to be a master, but that's not to just have the rank. It's so he can access all the restricted section books and like it's all that stuff.
Yeah, he
too,
wants
right?
the power on that level. It's how does we talked about it? This movie ends on a really strange scene. It ends on the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the scene just prior to the wedding?
Is Palpatine standing over on the balcony watching the clones load onto the ships.
And that could have been the better ending. Like you could have had
It should have been the wedding first, and then
the wedding. You see that, and then because of that, it kind of led to this. You know what I mean? Like now she's stepping away from the Senate powers. So you should have had that. I that was a little bit more, just a preference there.
But how do you feel about the way they did Anakin's fall in this movie? Do you think it was well done?
Yeah, if I'm not looking at what if, I'm looking at what I see. I mean, people give him crap for being whiny, but that's the whole point, that he's supposed to be this like young person. His social skills are extremely lacking because he's been on a planet, he's been a slave his whole life, so he's lived, the majority of his life as that. And the last 10 years he's been in this doctrine, this Jedi lifestyle that like is flawed, and we see that. Maybe we see these things and I just feel like maybe they could have been done better. So we do see the flaws. We do see him starting to realize like the kinks in the armor, like, okay, these people aren't what they say they are. They're not doing what they, what they need to be doing. They're, I like that. Yeah, he kind of taps into the dark side during the Tuscans. Does he tap into the dark side against Dooku and lose? Like,
at the end?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does he? I don't feel like he does.
Maybe you should have. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, good point. But that's what we got in 3.
But if his mother died in this one, you know what I mean? We should have had like all of a sudden Obi-Wan's about to go down, and like maybe Anakin, maybe it should have been more obvious that like he, when he gets that second saber or something, he's protecting Obi-Wan, like he kind of flutters with the dark side, and someone could have, be it Obi-Wan or Dooku, could have like mentioned that, and like that's why like he made a mistake and that's why he lost his arm. You know what I mean? Like he went to be too aggressive or something, or like it could have been.
We saw that right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's like, we'll take him together. He goes, no, I'm taking him now.
Yeah.
And then boom.
You know what I mean?
So when he
should have been more obvious though, like just versus that. It's a tough one. I like what they did with it. It's, do I want more? Do I want different? Like, yeah, I think it could have been stronger. Like when Padme goes down and he's obviously like, he slept through at this point. He's like, we have to go get her.
He's in his honeymoon stage.
Yeah, it's like a lot of my notes just stress just like how much he really hated the Jedi. Like how much he really, like everything. It's just like he said, like a teacher or something. It's like he's just constantly wrong. Everything he does is like looked down upon. Is like, it's wrong. It's this. It's that. And I kind of don't like that they make Obi-Wan out to be like this. He doesn't feel like he's a great master in this.
He's not.
You know what I mean? And I think maybe they do him an injustice, which is tough for me, being an Obi-Wan fan. You can argue that Obi-Wan's not a great character, but like he should be. He should be like the pinnacle of the Jedi at this point, which we know are crappy, but he should be like the best. He should be like, I even felt like kind of his detective skills and like that whole subplot. That was cool. I did enjoy that. Like, he's trying to solve a crime, but I felt like he was like clueless and there was too much that like, it's not showing his wisdom. And I don't want to see Obi-Wan becoming like, I want to just see him as Obi-Wan. I want to focus on Anakin's growth. You know what I mean? Like Obi-Wan should almost inherently kind of almost, I think, like be boring. Like he's a good Jedi. He's smart and clever and he does all this stuff and like he's wise and you know what I mean? He strives to be that. He is reckless in this. The way he even talks back to Anakin, like, I don't know. The focus should have just been on Anakin's growth. You know?
It's interesting coming from an Obi-Wan fan.
Yeah, it's because we saw Obi-Wan in episode 1 and he's kind of the reckless Padawan. So I feel like when Qui-Gon died, like his attitude would very much change and like I felt that he would have become wiser. He seems like he does some reckless stuff in this movie.
Don't you feel it's a good middle point between 3 and 1 though?
Not overly. Like, he's having this talk with Dooku and he's like, Dooku is literally like telling him everything. Yeah. And he's so like, maybe it's because he was spinning and he was getting sick.
But that's because he's such a great Jedi that he was so blinded.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I am making that point against myself there. Maybe I don't want to admit that my own character is flawed.
Yeah.
One of my favorite characters.
But that's the best part about it is like all characters are flawed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, so my overall favorite is probably Luke Skywalker, and he is absolutely flawed. His flaws cost
him. You like Luke more than Kenobi?
In its own capacity, I think so, yeah.
Really?
I think, but it's probably because like there's a lot of like extended Luke and like rereading the books now and like seeing him in that capacity. I really loved Obi-Wan. I loved even the Obi-Wan Qui-Gon books, like that series. Like Obi-Wan is a great duelist. He's all this stuff. He should have been like the pinnacle of the Jedi at the time.
He kind of was though.
I mean, like you had.
It wasn't shown in the movies well, but
yeah. Mace Windu was the better duelist, and Yoda was wiser, and Plo Koon was a better pilot, and Aayla Secura was a better troopman. It was just all kind of, I don't know. It didn't quite give him his. Or he could have just been a quiet Jedi just doing his thing the whole time.
Yeah.
They tried to make him, they kind of just didn't hit a good ground with me.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just I'm looking at my notes. It's just all about Jedi. Like technically, the Jedi lose their first real battle in like a few thousand years. It's like Obi-Wan beats a Sith, and then they send these 200 Jedi to the pit to rescue 2 and a senator, and they come back with like 20.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty bad loss.
That's a big loss.
And it's like
Yoda even says it at the end. Was it Kenobi who says, "Without the clones, we wouldn't have won this"? And he goes, "Won this? Yeah. We lost."
Yeah.
And like even he knew like this is so much more than the loss of the 180 Jedi we lost.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is about this movie that holds me back. There's you make a lot of really good points, a lot of things that really like, yeah, you're right, they make sense, and I really like that element. There's other things that just kind of like push back, that I go, well, that should have been better, or I didn't quite enjoy that, or...
So do you feel Obi-Wan was done disjustice in this?
I mean, the more I talk about it, I think he's not maybe a great character, but like...
Why do you think he's not a great character, though? Because, like, you can't just say he's not a great character, because he's, like, one of your favorite characters.
He's like, great in the first one. I think, like, watching again, like, I like the Detective Kenobi stuff, but I feel like he does some really goofy stuff, and he's just not sharp, and he's not with it. Like, he doesn't, when he's kind of discovering about the clone army and stuff, he should be, like, wise and playing along and, like, getting information, but he's just like, what?
But every character goes through that.
Me? But that shouldn't have been Kenobi.
Luke was that character. Anakin was that character. But Ahsoka was that
maybe
character.
Maybe I just didn't need to see Kenobi become that character. Maybe he was just always that character. You know what I mean? Like I said, I feel like there was a lot of time that's passed through the episode Phantom Menace, which that was his growing pain. You know what I mean? Like that was his movie.
So you wanted him to just be the mature Kenobi in this one?
Yeah. You know what I mean?
If he was so mature, though, then Anakin wouldn't have been who he was.
I still think that it's because of their age. Like I think it was that like Anakin needed a father, and they even said it like, you know, you were my brother, Anakin.
I think that's what I'm getting at, though. Like, Obi-Wan's still young and growing in this, right? Like, so with that age gap, like, while Anakin's growing, Obi-Wan's still growing.
Yeah,
And that's what they were trying to show here.
I don't know if maybe I'm thinking that, like, okay, what happens if, let's say that Obi-Wan's not growing? So when in this, he's growing physically, but like he is almost at the pinnacle of his maturity.
Then he would be the Qui-Gon figure, right?
Yeah, so wouldn't that have driven Anakin more, like, up the wall?
Probably not.
Because he's like, why are you so straight-laced? Why are you so like this?
Well, I guess, yeah, like, after being chill for so long, and then... It's weird. I get where you're coming from.
Like, I don't need him to be a plain character, but, you know, again, the detective stuff wasn't great. You know, the Geonosian battle where, like, they beat the creatures, it's like, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, he's using a spear and he's, like, fighting guys. And then he loses his first real lightsaber battle. He loses 2 battles. He loses against Jango Fett. It's like a mess. Like, he's being pulled around and slapping and, like, the big kick and stuff. And he just doesn't seem that, like, as, like, with it. And then he loses badly against Dooku. And, like, is it even that bad of a loss? Like, he, like, gets, like, brushed against the arm and, like, goes down. He's like,
well, I think Dooku likes Kenobi.
He was going to kill him. No, we talked about this. I think Dooku does not like Kenobi.
I think Dooku likes Kenobi.
I think Dooku knows that there's a connection.
Dooku wouldn't be able to feel okay with himself if he killed Kenobi because Qui-Gon wouldn't like Dooku if he did that.
Okay, so I agree with you in that aspect. So I agree with you that it's like, okay, like there's a mutual, like, I respect Qui-Gon and you, so like that. But I think too, you know, we've talked about this. Technically, Obi-Wan is the reason Qui-Gon's dead, right?
Yeah.
Like, Obi-Wan was supposed to have his master's back, and, you know, kind of got separated and all that happened. You know, again, in this, so here's Obi-Wan in episode 1, Phantom Menace. He gets kind of separated from his master dies. So what does the council do in this one? They separate Kenobi and they separate Anakin. And how does that play out? Obi-Wan gets into trouble and needs backup, doesn't have any. Then Anakin goes against their orders as backup when he should have been there. And, like, they both get captured. Then they have to send in a Jedi strike team to rescue him that costs 180 Jedi. And it's like, you did that. You guys did that. You knew that they are, like, Anakin and Obi-Wan are trouble. You know that they're issue. You did this. You put them in this situation. You reap the benefits. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what they did, though. They did reap the benefits. They lost half the Jedi Council.
It's no, they just stumbled and the droids carried them into the battle. You just got to put that clip up, just them walking in from the side, just being like, yeah, we were fighting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we lost. So I don't know. It's I think this is for sure the weakest of the prequel trilogy for me.
I'll give you that.
It's the one that I've watched the least when I compare it to the other ones. Like, what's our merit? Do I like it better than Force Awakens? Ooh,
it shouldn't even be a competition.
Guess I'm gonna have to watch Force Awakens again.
That shouldn't even be a competition.
You know, and it did.
Do you like Darth Vader more than Rey? Do you like Anakin more than Rey?
But Anakin is Rey.
No, he's not.
Rey's
not even real. That stuff didn't happen. That was all just
that was in a different galaxy.
Yeah,
in a long time ago.
Yeah.
No, so
that was Marvel, wasn't it?
I think that was a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it did lead to some great stuff. I like the Clone Wars TV shows and the rest of the series and the lore and everything that it built from. So my final cliff notes here, because I ramble on, didn't have the staying power that Phantom Menace did. It didn't have the shock value, that initial, like, wow, that Phantom Menace did, and didn't have the staying power that Revenge of the Sith did. I feel like it was just too clean. And yeah, great story elements. Like, the romance was great. You know what? I'll give you that. You know, you've turned my opinion on several things, but again, I just feel like they weren't standout. It was just okay. It was by number Star Wars.
Whenever you think bad about Phantom Menace, or whenever you think bad about Attack of the Clones, just picture all the good outfits that Padme's in.
We're gonna have to get a montage of them. Maybe we'll do a tier list.
We'll drop a montage right here.
Yeah.
So stay for the montage and follow for the next one.
Until next time.
Click the next video on the screen to see more Duel of the Fans content.